Former Treasury Secretary Henry Paulson defending his role on the Bank of America Merrill Lynch deal before House Committee yesterday. Our next guest was there and wants Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner to now testify. Joining us from Capitol Hill is Representative Patrick McHenry. He's Republican of North Carolina. He is on both the Oversight and Financial Services Committee. Congressman, good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Alexis.
Did you accomplish or get what you needed yesterday, or was it not enough?
Well, I don't think it was enough. I think Hank Paulson really hedged. He did admit, however, that he was very direct that the Fed would and could, in his words, could fire the Bank of America board and the management there. It was pretty clear that he was the one that delivered the threat to Ken Lewis, that Ken Lewis testified before the New York Attorney General that he received that threat in late December of last year. Now, the key ingredient that was missing from the three hearings that we've had, we had Ken Lewis in to testify about his response and what he heard. Ben Bernanke from the Fed, the former Treasury Secretary, obviously Hank Paulson yesterday. But the key person who's missing from this is Timothy Geithner, who was then head of the New York Fed. The New York Fed had an active role. The legal counsel from the New York Fed was the lead counsel on this merger, or acquisition rather, of Merrill by B of A. And Tim Geithner, through the email chain that we have, did not want to engage third parties because of a tough confirmation hearing that he was poised for as the next Treasury Secretary. So we need to hear from Tim Geithner about what he did, his actions, whether or not he directed the legal counsel from the New York Fed to direct Bank of America to delay their filing and disclosure to the public and their shareholders of the additional Merrill losses.
So, Congressman, the thing I can't figure out is why you guys wouldn't have called John Thane, because it's crystal clear from both Hank Paulson and what we've heard about the MAC clause that when John Thane made the deal with Ken Lewis, part of the deal was agreeing that if asset values declined, they still had to go through with the deal.
Sure, sure. And what is less than clear is the meaning of the MAC clause. As a member of Congress, look, the fact is this is a private sector deal. The interest that I have as a policymaker is to ensure that two government bureaucrats do not threaten private sector businesses with retaliatory action for not following through on a private sector deal. The fact is I'm looking at what happens going forward. As a free market conservative, look, my point of view is that the government shouldn't be involved in these deals, period. However, we have the government owning the greatest portion of the financial service industry in this country, owning the part of and outright a lot of the big banks in this country, and a significant investment in different companies throughout our country. So the fact is, I don't want government intervention here, but I want to make sure that if we're involved, that we don't have unethical bullying tactics to force something through that it's not in the best interest of the shareholders to complete.
You know, Congressman, there are a lot of people who are watching the testimony, the grilling, the questions, who say, what's all the shock and awe? That some of the shock and awe is disingenuous, and that a lot of lawmakers knew what was happening or should have been aware of some of what was happening, and that we were in one of the biggest financial crises, and many of you guys were the ones who had to sign off on the TARP in the first place. So is this theater, or are we really getting to the bottom of how to fix the regulatory system as a result?
So, Alexis, you're saying there's theater on Capitol Hill? I mean, obviously there is. I mean, and you have a lot of the members of Congress that voted for TARP who have a lot of buyer's remorse. I didn't vote for the TARP. I mean, I've got a clean conscience on this thing because I knew that the way Hank Paulson has acted throughout his whole career shows that he would use whatever tactic it is to get the deal done, to force whatever he wants to be done. Ben Bernanke is an academic. It's not really in his nature to do that as head of the Fed and his whole track record. But, yeah, there is a lot of buyer's remorse from these folks that voted for TARP, for the bailout, and they feel bad about that, and therefore they want to beat the hell out of the government bureaucrat that carried it out. As for me, I want to make sure that we don't have government bureaucrats bullying private sector leaders into doing something that's not in the best interest of the financial market, of their shareholders, and of their safety and soundness over the long term.
All right. Well, to be continued here, because I'm sure it'll affect the regulatory framework. Representative Patrick McHenry, thanks so much for taking the time. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Alexis.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. We will be right back.